Subcommittee, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez.
Thank you so much, Chair Raskin. In a 2006 bulletin, the FBI detailed the threat of white nationalists infiltrating police departments, a coordinated effort. This bulletin came during a time when a neo-Nazi gang formed by members of the LA Sheriff's Department were found harassing Black and brown communities. And while this was about 15 years ago, according to recent reporting from the New York Times, in addition to PBS, it's found that despite efforts, it doesn't look like things have improved. And I would like to submit both of these documents to the record.
Without objection.
Police officers have been dismissed across the United States, including Virginia, Texas, Florida, Michigan, Nebraska, and Louisiana for having ties to the Ku Klux Klan. And we also know that more than 30 active or retired police officers joined the January 6th attack on the Capitol, and at least 7 are facing charges connected to that day. Director Langen, I take it you are familiar with this 2006 bulletin, correct?
I may have to review that bulletin, ma'am, to recall it exactly.
No worries. To your knowledge, what do we know about the radicalization efforts among certain officers already in police departments and the effort to recruit white nationalists joining police departments across the United States?
Yes, ma'am. Well, as I mentioned before, individuals that are in positions of trust and have radicalized ideas and gravitate towards hate and violence are of very concerning, as they've always been. We work with our local partners very closely to help identify and to educate their departments on proper vetting and on standards of acceptance. So we are constantly working to try to make sure that that does not exist. Mm-hmm. I can speak an overwhelmingly amount of law enforcement interactions that we have with the FBI are positive, and that does represent a very, very small amount of law enforcement, but an amount that can never be tolerated.
Okay, thank you. One aspect of the Biden administration's counterterrorism strategy is the focus on detecting these insider threats, that is, ensuring that no one in state or federal government abuses their position by engaging in domestic terrorism related activities of any kind. Now, what happens when the FBI does find instances of white nationalists in local law enforcement? What does the FBI do?
Well, if the individuals are part of an ongoing or conducting or plan to conduct any type of criminal actions, we would, along with the U.S. Attorney's Office, try to open an investigation and determine whether or not there are charges. If the individual is showing that they are memberships of a group that may be deemed to be a racist or a group that's focused on hate, that becomes the departmental issue on how that they will proceed with that employee.
Okay, so it sounds like there isn't a protocol for what to do when a police officer is found to be part of a white supremacist organization.
No, ma'am. There's no central method to notify the FBI about violent extremism. Again, stressing the importance of partnership between local law enforcement and the FBI.
Okay,
and
so
DHS.
that's something that I just would like the committee to note, that that there's no currently existing protocol of what to do when a member of law enforcement is discovered to be part of an organization like the Ku Klux Klan. But this is very important information. I thank you for your candor. Now, during a briefing in March of this year, the FBI did promise to provide this subcommittee with information on how we could set up a reporting structure that would give federal law enforcement capability to track white supremacist threats between state and local police. Now, despite multiple efforts to follow up, we've yet to receive a reply. Can we get a commitment to securing that answer on this as quickly as possible from the department?
Ma'am, I will look into that and get back with your office. I recently took this post, but I will look into those requests.
Sure thing.
And get back with your office.
Thank you so much. Now, Mr. Cohen, the committee is currently investigating an incident of CBP's response to a massive Facebook group of thousands of CBP officers, where many posted violent racist content, including mocking the deaths of migrants and threatening members of Congress. Just last week, we saw agents violently confronting and whipping Haitian migrants. So in light of this latest incident, how does Secretary Mayorkas plan to accelerate efforts to root out incidents of violent racism within DHS's ranks?
So the Secretary has instructed the Office of Security as well as the Human Capital Office and others to do several things. One, to evaluate through the Insider Threat Program, whether there are open investigations into domestic violent extremist behavior by our employees, to review our hiring practices and our employee practices to ensure that that domestic violent extremist ideological beliefs are not influencing the decision-making of personnel working within the Department of Homeland Security. And I would say as someone who's spent 35 plus years in law enforcement and Homeland Security, the exercise of law enforcement responsibilities have to be free from discriminatory practices. Decision-making can't be based on implicit or conscious biases of individuals or the organization, quite frankly, and even the perception that that individuals who are holding positions of public trust, particularly those who enforce our laws, even the perception that they hold racially biased or extremist attitudes can undermine faith and confidence in those organizations. So it's a significant concern for the department, and the Secretary has instructed a very aggressive effort to address it.
All right. Thank you very much, Coordinator.
Gentlelady yields